Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh for everyone. Today we are here to present to you about our topic, liberalism. My name is Nabila Binti Fadzli, and I will present to you about what is liberalism. Liberalism is a political and moral philosophy founded on the principles of liberty, consent of the governed, and equality under the law. Liberals hold a variety of positions depending on how these principles are interpreted, but they generally support individual rights such as civil and human rights, secularism, democracy, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, and a market economy. The use of phrase liberal democracy to characterize countries with free and fair elections, rule of law, and protected civil liberty exemplifies liberalism as the defining quality of modern democracy. When it comes to IR theory, liberalism, on the other hand, has evolved into its own distinct entity. Liberalism contains a variety of concepts and arguments about how institutions, behaviors, and economic connections contain and mitigate the violent power of states. So, the father of liberalism theory is John Locke, 1962 until 704. Humans have natural rights according to Locke, and this belief is represented in the U.S. Declaration of Independence and Constitution. He also felt that in order for the government to be legitimate, we must consent to it. This means that if we disagree with the government, we have the right to withdraw our permission. Next, he felt that when we do what the government tells us to do, we are all giving tacit permission. For instance, you paying taxes and adhering to the rules. From the liberalism theory emerged next theory, which is idealism. The core beliefs for liberalism is spread of democracy, global economic ties, and for idealism it is an international politics shaped by persuasive ideas, collective values, culture, and social identities. The key actors in IR for liberalism is states, international institutions, and commercial interests. And for idealism, it promotes new ideas, transnational activities, activist networks, and non-governmental organizations. And the main instruments for liberalism is international institutions and global commerce. For idealism is ideas and values. Okay, in the aspect of theory intellectual blind spots, for liberalism, it fails to recognize that democratic regimes can only remain if military power and security are safeguarded. Some liberals seem to have forgotten that democratic transitions may be violent, and for idealism, it does not explain which power structures and social conditions allow for changes in values. So that's all for introduction. Let's move to the next presentations.
I am Nur Azmina Binti Azemi. Let's move to 4 factors that contribute to north-south inequality. First factor is globalization. According to Oxford Constitutionary of Politics, globalization can be defined as a universal process or set of processes that generate a multitude of linkage and interconnections that transcends the nation and society that make up the current world system. This also aspect of imperialism. Using transportation, information and communication technology, the North or economically developed states have been able to extend their exploitative tentacles to certain economy and make the best drive for risk accumulations in the form of productions, trading, and service to facilitate the integrations of certain economy to the metropolitan north. Second, neocolonialism and colonialism. The economic gap between North and South persists due to the existence of imperialism in the form of colonial and neocolonial domination by North to South. Imperialism means the domination of one country over another country in order to expand its influence and gain economic and political interest. The states in North have extended the tentacles of their expansion through colonialism and neocolonialism to the southern economy to accumulate economic wealth that is beyond their borders. This is due to the decline in profitability and increased business problems that occurs in the North. Third, unfair term and practice of trade. The trade practice and policy that have existed in the global market do not benefit the state in the South. The removal of barrier and tariff as demanded and ordered by the Bretton Woods institution, leave the Southern's economy vulnerable to the international exploitations, the existence of unhealthy competitions, and even the dominance of local industry. Then Southern states have become dumping ground for finished goods manufactured by industry economy as a result of law and illegal economic activity that have made primary item and labor industries cheaply available to transnational firms. The last one, military trends. The Northern state military capabilities have been used to coerce the South into acting in a way that the North desire. This has made exploitations and economic influence in the South simple as well as inequality and a reality. For example, the United States military has positioned itself as the world police force, allowing them to carry out the basic of their foreign policy solutions and accomplish the desired outcomes.
Hi, my name is Rabiatul Adawiyah Binti Roszaman. Now I would like to explain more on the problems of liberalism theory that occurs on the issue of North-South gap. First and foremost is North pursuit of her national and business interests selfishly perceived. In this context, the matters of business interests play a strong role for each of the nations. The global North and the global South have huge different gaps, especially in developing the economic levels. In general, the Souths are more in agricultural developments that are often passing backwards. Meanwhile, for the Souths, they are focusing more on the major business, national interests, and continue to dominate in international trade politics. This is because the global North can be considered as the states that are wealthy, technologically advanced, and politically stable. Due to this, the North can easily exploit the South and affect life and culture of the people in the southern region. Therefore, the liberalization of the market occurs because most of the South countries lost to the competitions of the North. The North's people are more developed, highly skilled, and educated in terms of technological things which could benefit them by boosting the quality in life. The second problem that brings the North and South countries' gap getting widened is the North-South agreement and program is insincere. The United Nations itself has developed a program dedicated to narrowing the divide through its Millennium Development Goals, which is for developments of education, healthcare, and most importantly to ensure the environmental sustainability. Through these certain efforts such as discussion, programs, talks, or even conference were carried out in order to bridge the gap between them. But somehow these efforts are unattainable as they are not giving their certainty towards each nation involved. As known, the global North is sturdy in terms of economically and politically, but they could not cooperate in balancing these interests towards the South country. Meanwhile, the South is fragile and so vulnerable to oppose the North as it exists huge barriers that makes the world apart for them. As the North had participated in the program that was held by the United Nations, they did cooperate in carrying out the agreement, but they actually did not intend to fulfill the promise. It's just like the words without actions and no result gained from the treaty. Hence, the North prefers to provide particular assistance and support with corresponding benefits, instead of attempting to close the gap between the Souths. This resulted in pretense in international relations between them, which leads to more gap and dissatisfaction. This is because the North prioritize their own interests over the needs for economic balance, which do not regard as a worthwhile gesture.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurul Wani Izzati binti Muzapar. Now I'm going to continue with another two problems that were faced between the North and South. The third problem is poor leadership and corrupt practice in the South. Over the years, the South has been trapped in a critical leadership problem which affects the development. The reason why this happened is most likely because the process of attainment to state power in the South has been so crude, therefore they have to take many incompetent candidates as they were desperate to secure the power and political victories and ignore the democracy. In other words, the leaders do not want to take responsibility and lack the ability in facing the challenges, which is the reason why the gap between the North and South is getting wide and they cannot reach the final point. For example, Nigeria is the country that always fails because of failure of leadership. Last but not least, prospect for reducing North-South imbalance through North and South dialogue. The possibility of achieving a reduction in the development gap existing between global North and South through the dialogue is low, as the national interest to state and business is more important than people. One of the factors is because public funds will go into private foreign accounts in banks located in those states. It shows signs of unseriousness and insincerity in the South and North, as both receive illegal funds for safekeeping. Even though the economic production is doing well in third world societies, the rate of poverty shows that the profit is only for metropolitan society and not for the host countries. To summarize this problem, the Southern leaders were extracting national profits to foreign banks for creating a diplomatic relationship between foreign assistance in order to dominate the gap between the South and North dialogues. It is impossible to reduce the gap as it includes corruptions. However, this problem can be solved by restructuring their development system in order to reduce the inequality. Thank you.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mohd Shukor bin Mohd Sharip. So I will continue with the parties involved to these issues. The first parties involved is Global North and Global South countries. The definition of the North include North American countries, which is the United States and Canada, European countries, Israel, and developed parts of East Asia, which is Japan. While the South is made up of Latin America, African countries, and developing Asia such as Africa, India, Mexico, China, Brazil, and Indonesia. Second is intergovernmental organization, which is United Nations. United Nations adopt Millennium Development Goals and Sustainability Agenda as the objective is for international development. It also aims to achieve international peace and security. Other than that, the sustainability agenda also wants every country is sustained in every sector, such as sustainable economic growth. The third parties involved is United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, which is UNCTAD. The group of 77 nations, which constitute most of the developing countries participating in UNCTAD, held a ministerial conference in Lima, Peru, from October 29 to November 8, 1971, for the purpose of coordinating the stand to be taken by developing countries at the third UNCTAD and to reconfirm their unity. This conference, also called Lima Conference. In the UNCTAD, Japan one of the country that shows the good attitude, which is participate positively in international development cooperation for the settlement of the North-South problem. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Muhammad Afizan Fikri bin Zainal, and I will talk about the first half of the recommendation and will be continued by my fellow groupmate Anirah. So for the first recommendation is to recommend democratization of the United Nations to reflect equal representation and rights of all members. When the founder of United Nations drafted the United Nations Charter, they did not mention the word democracy. In 1945, many of the UN member states did not endorse democracy as a system or didn't practice it. Yet, the opening words of the Charter, "We are the people," reflect the fundamental principle of democracy, that the will of the people is the source of legitimacy of sovereign state and therefore of the United Nations as a whole. The UN does not advocate for a specific model of government, but promotes democratic governance as a set of values and principles that should be followed for greater participation, equality, security, and human development. Democracy provides an environment that respects human rights and fundamental freedoms, and in which the freely expressed will of the people is exercised. People have the say in the decisions and can hold decision maker to account. Women and men have equal rights, and all people are free from discriminations. So, this will ensure that the North and South gap can be lessened. Then, for the second recommendation is no government official serving or retired should be permitted to aspire for an office in the organization. What this means is that any retired official should not be given a chance to get into on the office of an organization because they may become biased and cannot give any new ideas that may help in lessening the North and South gap. This is to give the opportunity for the young people to lead and strive on their own. Due to the tendency of retired officials making poor choices and are old-fashioned, that the North and South gap are widening. That is all from me, and I will let my partner to continue on the topic. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Anirah. I will continue present suggestion. A sustainable economic reform is a road to bridge the North and South gap. This may be accomplished through growing investment in developing countries, and foreign direct investment (FDI) is such a valuable strategy because the possibility of FDI liberalization is that will attract a new foreign investment and improve total investment rate. Beyond increasing income and employment, it also brings knowledge that will encourage domestic organization, ability and technology capacities for economic growth. Lastly, the United Nations will assist people wherever and whenever an autocratic government authority become uncontrolled to revolutionary by eliminate poor leadership. So they need to verify a violation of international law and committed by the revolution's leader and seek justice in national or international courts. As we know, the United Nations is a symbol of human rights and development countries, so every leader should bring out their idea for new global development.
Okay, as for the conclusion, one of liberalism's central argument is that concentrations of unaccountable violent power poses serious threat to individual liberty and must be restrained. Institutions and standards, both domestically and internationally, are the primary means of restricting power. Institutions and organizations at the international level limit nations' power by fostering collaboration and providing a means for imposing costs on those that breach international agreements. Because of the significant benefits that can be derived from the economic interdependence, economic institutions are particularly effective at fostering cooperation. Finally, liberal norms constrain the use of power by influencing our perceptions of what constitutes appropriate behavior. Liberalism is no longer seen as a utopian theory describing a perfect society of peace and happiness as it was formerly thought to be. So that's all from us. Thank you.